Hey, check it out. I'm back again. I told you I would be. So I apologize. I've never used this service with this so-called browser or technology. So I'm just going to hang out for a little bit, wait for you guys to come back, and hopefully you'll be back because I got a whole show to do. But while I'm waiting for you, I think I'm going to try the screen share again. A friendly heads up. Oh boy. All right. Looks like I'll be using the old Macintosh, the old Apple, for the. This is going to be fun. This is going to be very. StreamYard wants to share your contents. What about the Chrome tab? Yeah, okay. Application window. Let's see what happens if I pop one of these charts. All right. Let's do this. Here we go. Look at that. Bada bing. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for coming back, or at least most of you. So I get to find out about the bugs that StreamYard has with Google Chrome. We'll work this thing out. All right. So this is the chart of one Kamala Harris. And we've broken this chart down before. It's not like this is, in fact, I think this is the second time. The first time it had to do with Jussie Smollett, and clearly he was all over this chart. Jussie Smollett being Mr. Gemini was right over here. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Venus in the 12th house, right, hidden behind the scenes. So we did her chart, we did Cory Booker's chart, and, pretty clear matches. Now, Kamala Harris is 27 Libra. So she's right on the Via Combusta, or the burning path. And then she's got that Mercury conjunction in Scorpio. And I always feel that, she's about 2 or 3 sentences from basically just going off the rails. I never feel quite relaxed around Kamala. I mean, let's be clear. I wouldn't feel relaxed about any politician, really. But she does not give off a feeling of relaxation whatsoever. And so she's got that Libra sun, which theoretically can be charming, but it's not really. It's not quite. And she is kind of a dominating personality with the sun in the 5th house, and she does have that trine to the ascendant with her sun, which is a very powerful trine, by the way. If your sun is in trine with the ascendant, so it's usually going to come out of 1 or 2 places, like late 5th or more like late 10th. So, my sun is in trine with my ascendant. Her sun is in trine. So when people have that, they have the ability to move their personality into the everyday world in a way that can be at times forceful, depending on where it's coming from. So for her in the 5th house, which is Leo's house, it is kind of this is where, in some ways, that kind of Libran charm loses some of its sort of Venusian grace as it comes out of the 5th, which tends to be a bit more egoic, right? Libra is about, cooperation, finding balance, finding win-win, But that's not what she's really about. She's about self-expression. When somebody's sun is in the fifth house, they tend to be more engaged in self-expression. And that self-expression is easily moved through the ascendant. Now, apparently she was some kind of a debate champion. And I could actually see why she probably did well with that Gemini ascendant and that true node right on the ascendant. Look at that. That is like right there. It is bada bang. Bada bang, right on her ascendant. So what do we know about the position of the true node on the ascendant? And it's really very close to being exact. Is that the expression of self is a really big deal. Like she has got to express who she is. She's got to get into that, into Kamala. Does she ever talk about herself in the third person? I wonder, because this would be kind of a third person kind of expression. I've never heard her, but then again, she probably has a public language and a private language, which with somebody with the true node in Gemini, I think that would be the case. Public language and a private language. So with the true node here, she never stops talking. I mean, she's, and she always seems like rushed. There's always a sense of her feeling rushed. She never feels quite composed. And I think it has to do with running the sun and to some extent even Mercury through the ascendant. I actually like the Mercury conjunction with the sun. See, I'm actually being kind to Kamala Harris, right? I think it's a good aspect, especially the early degree of Scorpio. So people that have Mercury and Scorpio they're very good researchers. They're natural psychics and detectives. They sometimes really shoot from the hip, and when they want to hit you with a zinger, a person with Mercury and Scorpio can hit you with the X-ray vision and then let you have it. All right. So she appears to be very Libran in some ways, and she tries to have a sunny or gregarious fifth house disposition, but Mercury here in front of her it brings another layer to that story. And remember, when Mercury's in front of the sun, it is called Epithean Mercury. And then when Mercury is behind the sun, it is called Promethean Mercury. And the reason for that is because when Mercury is behind the sun, the individual throws themselves into an experience. And then they think about it afterwards. If you have Mercury before your sun, then you're thinking about what you're doing before you do it. It's a more calculating relationship and placement for Mercury. And clearly, I think she's fairly calculating. I would say on some level, do not, and I've said this before, do not underestimate Kamala Harris. Yeah, she may be incredibly likable. She may have gotten her ass kicked by Tulsi Gabbard. But look, she's got Saturn right on her midheaven. And Oakland is, I guess, her place. She's an anchor baby, right? Saturn right in her midheaven in Aquarius. That's a pretty powerful position. And, we could see here, if she does not, if she doesn't get elected as part of the Biden ticket, which is turning out to be a bit of a disaster, do not file her away so quickly. This is not a person who will fold up the tent. Not with Saturn on this side of the midheaven, and with her Saturn return coming, and that would essentially be, 3 years from now. If she does not make it in this election as a VP, I would not be surprised if she sticks around and you're going to see her again in 4 more years. Now, remember, she's also going to have Jupiter in her 9th house, but that's not going to happen until after the election. Like, is she, unless, okay, this is where it gets tricky now. If Biden does get elected and she has Jupiter in her 9th house, I would say that by the time that Jupiter transit is over, and I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, Jupiter this year moves from Aquarius to Pisces. So over the last couple of years, Jupiter has gone basically to the edge of the sign it's in. Like, we saw Jupiter go to what, 28 in Capricorn, and then it retrogrades. But every time this happens, Jupiter moves closer to the sign next to it. So we have a fast Jupiter this year, and it does go into Pisces. And if she is part of the ticket and she is elected, I would bet my astrological bank account that when Jupiter hits Saturn in her chart, that's when she would take over for Joe Biden. So she's got and I'm just, again, I'm being honest here. I'm not being, I'm not trying to run Kamala. I'm looking at this from a purely astrological perspective, because this is a serious thing we're talking about here. The future of the world, really the world. And my personal opinion is I don't like her. I lived in California. I watched her rise to the top. If you go to my Facebook page, I was posting about her a long time ago, and I said, watch this woman. There's a very good chance she'll be president of the United States one of these days. I'm not a fan. I think she's disingenuous. I think she represents the absolute worst in politics, which makes her in some ways the most political animal you'll ever run across. But she has issues. She has issues on the way to the White House. Well, what are those issues? Well, first of all, she's got her South Node in Capricorn, and it's in the 7th house. So what does Capricorn represent? Well, it represents power. It represents higher. I'm sorry, that's Sagittarius. Is that right? That's Sagittarius. My bad. Not Capricorn. She's got South Node in Sagittarius, 7th house. But she does have Ceres, and she does have Black Moon Lilith in Capricorn. All right. So she's got this South Node conjunction. So her nodes are getting ready to move into the synchronous orbit and balance, which in many regards could actually be quite good for her, especially on the debate side of things. But if she's running, this is where I was going with this, but if she's running a partnership, which she is with Joe Biden, partnerships are not favored at this time. Not favored. So everything that she'll wind up doing with Biden will look very awkward. If you haven't seen it already, it does. It's going to look very awkward. She's still going through this Pluto 8th house transit, which is very intense. Not everybody goes through the Pluto 8th house transit. She's got Saturn going through her 8th house. It's a very difficult transit. Very, very difficult transit. Because when Saturn goes, this was where I think she had to go through this idea of defeat when she got her ass kicked by Tulsi Gabbard. To me, that's the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in her 8th house. That's like a death. And when Saturn goes through the 8th house, you have to die in some ways. You have to shed you have to shed weight. You have to shed baggage. You have to get light. Whatever you take through that transit and you come out with on the other side is the thing that's going to be your teacher when it goes to the 9th house. Okay. So she's still going through that shedding process, that death, quote unquote death process. So that's happening, right? This is happening right now. Pluto in the 8th house a lot of times people will say, well, Pluto in the eighth house is a terrible or bad transit. But remember, that is Pluto's ruler, right? So Pluto is in dignity in the eighth house. And that can go either way, depending upon, where Pluto is. Now, she is coming up, not now, but within the next 2.5 years. We are transiting Pluto right now at 23. It's getting pretty close to squaring her sun. If I'm not mistaken, that's kind of right around the degree. It was right around 25 or so when she got into the debate with Tulsi Gabbard and just got, she didn't know what hit her. I've never seen Kamala Harris that shaken and stunned. This is somebody who always has a quip, always has something very quick to say, very, very quick. And she had nothing. So that Pluto transit is going to come again. Now, does that mean that she will go through something similar? Will she go through that same kind of ignominy that she went through with Tulsi Gabbard? Or will she have learned from that? And will it be, instead of something being possibly taken away from her or cut off from her, will she use it to power up? And will she use everything at her advantage to get what she wants? Because sometimes that'll happen with Pluto in the eighth house, and especially with a square to her sun in Libra. So this is a very interesting time for her. And a lot of what's going to be taking place, obviously, will be behind the scenes. We look at the true node right now. It is at, let's see, what do we have? Where we are? 27. So by the time the election rolls around, that true node is going to be in her 12th house. And everything that is kind of working for her at this point, theoretically working for her, or at least this emphasis on self and communicating and trying, and she's trying to do two things simultaneously. She's trying to sell herself as a left-leaning, hard left-leaning, progressive, liberal, social democrat. But on the other hand, the social democrats don't trust her. They think she's a law and order candidate because of her hardcore relationship with putting people in prison in California and beefing up the prison system so California could have a bunch of cheap labor. So there's a lot of emphasis on sort of this divided kind of self that she kind of brings to the public, right? So this is kind of an interesting, tricky time for her. And once this true node dips behind the ascendant and goes into the 12th house, there are two things that can happen. Number one, she will fade into the background, which with Kamala Harris seems kind of hard to believe in some ways. But she'll fade into the background. Or the other is that, she will basically just kind of disappear. And fade in the background and disappearing are two different things. Fade in the background would be allowing like Biden to take the lead. Disappearing would be like just, not having any influence whatsoever, but perhaps maybe leading or doing things from behind the scenes. I mean, that could very well be part of this transit. The thing that I see that could be both it's one of these aspects that could make or break her, which is coming up. Because we can see we have Mars at 24 Aries. That Mars is about three or 4 days away from hitting her natal moon in Aries, which means it's going to be in opposition with her sun. She's born on a full moon. She's got an Aries full moon. And that is kind of an intense moon to have. That is an intense, the Aries moon, and especially a full moon, just, I don't think that she would necessarily go over well with women. That's my sense here. I don't think she would go over well with women. She's got Saturn on the midheaven, which tends to be kind of cold and steely and ambitious and calculated. This is just Saturn. This is just Saturn. I'm not talking about Aquarius. In Aquarius, there is generally a kind of hard driving attachment to some kind of ideal. So I would say that whatever you think about Kamala Harris, I think that Saturn has been guiding her journey along the way. And there's a couple different interpretations of that. Number one is that Saturn represents older people. I mean, it represents older people. That's what experience, whatever, right? And who did she hook herself up with in San Francisco? None other but Willie Brown. What sign is Willie Brown? He's in Aries. So now we have the Sun-Moon conjunction with Willie Brown. He was in the 11th house. He was a friend with a benefit, or she was a friend with a benefit. But there was a significant age difference. And Willie Brown's an odd guy. He's a very odd guy. Very strange dude. When I was living in San Francisco, he was known as the mayor. He ruled that town and people hated him. However, people in power loved him because he was the consummate deal maker. And when I was young, when I was like 20, I think I was 28 years old, I was working for San Francisco Magazine. And we were doing this issue on power. And this guy, Mo Bernstein, well, he was a kingmaker in San Francisco. Very powerful, very influential guy. We sat down and we took his picture. I was just there with this guy, Alec, who was the photographer for the magazine. So we were just there to take his picture. But he was talking to me, and I think I've told this story before, but Willie Brown's name came up, and he was a guy that was very influential in helping create his political career. You know, he was a state assemblyman. He was a state assemblyman. He moved around, and eventually got into being a mayor. And Mo Bernstein was like his kingmaker in a lot of ways. And then he confided into me, like, I didn't even know the guy, and he confided to me that he was very disappointed in Willie Brown and that he had lost his way. I'm like, well, that's kind of interesting. And then he even invited me to come have lunch with him. So I'm like, I don't know what that was about. Right. But he gave me some insight a little bit into Willie Brown, who, basically was set up to, because I think there was at one point in time that there was this idea that politicians, especially Democrats, actually helped people. Like, even if it was sort of on the surface, some of that was there, especially if they were dealing with the Teamsters or the mafia or the unions. They had to kind of represent them and on some level. And then all of a sudden, somewhere in the 90s, I think with Clinton, really, that all changed. And, Democratic politics became incredibly self-serving, and you couldn't tell the Democrats from the Republicans at that point. So I think Willie Brown was sort of kind of an early adopter with that. Of course, he's an Aries, and he was going to help advance Willie Brown. So, but here we go now. I don't think Kamala is well-liked by women, even though she's got the sextile with Moon to Saturn. I just don't get she's well-liked because of that Moon in Aries, 11th house, public persona, and here comes Mars. Here comes Mars. We're probably about 3 days away from Kamala Harris either doing something that will elevate her and get her to the next level. Like there, and with politics, you never know. Things can be really staged because we know that's how politics works. But she could do something that would either get her to the next level and really cement her in a way as tough, right? With that Mars-Moon conjunction as being tough. But the downside of that would be the opposition to the sun. Now, usually oppositions are what they infer. They are energies that look like they're coming at you from an opposite direction. Okay. So here we have the sun-moon conjunction. Here's what I think this is about. There was a guy by the name of David, I think his name is David DeLayden. He was the guy that did the video where he went into Planned Parenthood. I think it was a convention, and he got Planned Parenthood basically on tape to say that they sold baby parts, that they sold embryos. He was the guy that did that, and it was, it wasn't really shocking for me because even before that video came out, I was having these thoughts like, what do they do with all those babies? Like, what do they do with all those embryos? And I thought about it, so I decided to do a search. And this is before the video came out, and I found this article that they were actually using some of the fetal products in flavoring for Pepsi. And I'm like, what the fuck? What is this about? And then I began to find that there were some other uses, primarily cosmetic uses. And it wasn't long after that video came out. I was like, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because apparently Kamala Harris has a very tight relationship with Planned Parenthood, and that she was instrumental in silencing this David DeLayden guy, and I think even either rendering a judgment. She was instrumental in this, in silencing him, and then essentially not allowing this video to be seen. So I'm wondering if this is going to come up, right? Because we're dealing with the moon here, which represents, of course, mothers and maternity and the fertile, the whole generative and fertile process, the process of fertility. And here comes Mars, and it's going to be coming from the outside, right? So she's going to have to deal with this. She's going to have to deal with this, and it's going to come in through her moon and attack her character, right? Her son. And in the fifth house, I do think it has to do with children. Now, the other thing that we see here in her chart is Black Moon Lilith, which is beginning to approach her moon. So now we have Black Moon Lilith, which is this? Black Moon Lilith is at where's Lilith? 27. So Black Moon Lilith is right on her natal moon. Wow. And then Mars is about 3 degrees. Mars is about 2 or 3 days away. So I think by Wednesday. So circle Wednesday on your calendar with Kamala. Now, she may be dealing with something scandalous around this Planned Parenthood stuff. That's kind of what I'm thinking of. It's either that or it relates to whatever she's done in California, being such a hardcore, hard-ass attorney general. Even in San Francisco, when she was the DA, she locked everybody up. The exact opposite of the guy there now. But in her astrological favor, she does have that sextile to Saturn, which means that she could theoretically weather the storm. Okay, this is somebody who understands endurance. Saturn's the highest planet in her chart. She's got the sun trine to Saturn, the Mercury trine to Saturn, Moon sextile Saturn. And she also has, it's not a classic mystic rectangle, but it's pretty close. And people that have mystic rectangles tend to kind of land on their feet. But I'd say the next 3 days, Wednesday, will be very interesting in her public profile. It'll be very, very interesting. She's already gone through the Neptune-Pluto opposition. She's got this Neptune-Venus. I think Neptune retrograde is about 20. It's already separated, so it's kind of moved away from her Virgo planets a little bit. It will, over the course of the next roughly year and a half, go into square with her nodes. That could be a bit tricky. Again, she's dealing with an older guy, Joe Biden. I mean, Joe Biden is considerably older than Kamala Harris. We've seen this. Saturn on her midheaven is the Willie Brown effect. It's the Joe Biden effect. I think her current husband is also, he looks, I don't know if he's older or not, but he looks older than she is. So this idea of Saturn on the midheaven as it relates to age does kind of play out here. I think her Mars in the third house is problematic for a number of reasons. Number one, it's in Leo. I don't have a problem with Mars in Leo. I like Mars in Leo. It's great for leadership, courage. People that have Mars in Leo tend to be, athletically oriented in some cases, theatrically inclined. Mars in the third house is not an easy placement. It is a very restless Mars. I think of everything. I think this is what I get with her. When I see her, I get that restless Mars. It's restless. It's sextiles with her ascendant, which is interesting because now you got the Mars and the Sun flowing through her ascendant, which gives her, some energy. Whether you like her or not, I mean, she does stand out. And I think when they made this choice, a lot of people thought that it's a bad choice for the Democrats because she is so polarizing. There's that Gemini in the ascendant. But I'm not so sure. I think it was a very calculated choice because whether you like her or not, she's an unmistakable personality, whereas Joe Biden has no personality at this point. I mean, they could have had Stacey Abrams, or they could have had Karen Bass, or they could have had Tammy Duckworth, or they could have had Christine Whitler. And Whitler might have been maybe a better candidate for Biden in general, I think. But none of the people that I mentioned, and even Stacey Abrams, does not have the same kind of brand. Like, you don't call her Kamala Harris, you call her Kamala. Or she's like one of these one word people like Charo or Pele. Kamala. It's just Kamala. So I think it was a calculated risk on the people that are running Biden's campaign. And by the way, the people that are running Biden's campaign are the same people that ran Beto O'Rourke's campaign. And if you're thinking, well, he was a loser and it wasn't a successful campaign, you have to re-examine the Beto O'Rourke campaign. It was an incredibly successful campaign because the guy's a fucking doofus. All right, he's a giant elf, right? He's got that the unmistakable gigantic Irish noggin, and he's a doofus. And not only that, but he's married to a woman whose father is super rich. He's not, and he's trying to pass himself off as Beto, and so think about what they did with that guy, and they got him within, I think, like 50,000 votes of Ted Cruz. All right. So the people that are running Biden's campaign are very sharp. They're very young. They're millennials. All right. These are millennials that know how to do social networking, I mean, I've studied some of these people. They're very, very good at what they do. So I think that they took a calculated risk with Kamala Harris because she is the one person out of that group, like her or not, love her or hate her, she has an unmistakable personality. It doesn't matter if she only polled at 7%. They're thinking that they can get some kind of energy. Now, what's interesting, if I'm not mistaken, is that Trump's sun is almost right on her ascendant. And his Sun-Uranus conjunction is right on her ascendant. I think a lot of people say, that she'll run circles around Trump in a debate. I'm not so sure. But it'll be interesting to see how this thing goes down, because the one thing about Trump is that he's unpredictable. He is totally unpredictable. The one thing about Kamala Harris is she's predictable, right? She's got a Sun-Saturn trine. She knows how to do things. Once you lock into that Sun-Saturn groove, you know what to do, right? She has Uranus trine to Jupiter, which is it's a very, very wide trine. In fact, what do we got here? Let's see. That's Neptune. So where's your Jupiter? Yeah, so even Astrodines isn't really recognizing it. That's pretty good for improvisation. It's not quite there. Pluto, though, is definitely in trine with Jupiter. That's money. That's money. That's a money sign. And she's got a pipeline to money. She's got a big pipe. Look at that. Her Jupiter is right on Trump's midheaven. Wow. This is going to be a very interesting dance between these two. A very interesting dance with her Jupiter on his midheaven and his Sun Uranus on her ascendant and on her true node. It's going to be very, very interesting. Super interesting. Will her Jupiter come in over the top on Trump's chart, right? Or will Trump be able to exploit sort of this Jupiterian space? Because they're both conjunct Algol, which says to me that they're linked to another time together. Like these two are linked to that Jacobin French Revolutionary period. What's interesting is that there's an online magazine, I think, called Jacobin, and it's a lefty magazine. And I think she's like on the cover or something, and they're calling her a law and order candidate. But the word Jacobin comes up with Kamala Harris. So, but I would say the next 3 days are going to be quite interesting. Very interesting with this Mars conjunction on her moon. She's either going to have this kind of full frontal assault and it'll completely derail her, or she's going to be able to make it work to her advantage and she'll, kind of power up on this deal. It's going to be very interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Now, remember also that what might look like an advantage now could easily be a disadvantage when Mars goes retrograde. And Mars goes retrograde on the 10th of September. And guess what? It's going to go back over her moon again, and it's going to come back one more time. So this is her first pass with Mars on her moon. She's going to get worked over. We're going to find out who Kamala really is over the course of maybe we'll find out who she really is. And maybe some of the birth details with the moon might also come into play as well. She does have of course, cursed Mars-Neptune square, which, again, it depends on sort of where Mars is, where Neptune is, what the signs are. I mean, generally speaking, that's a sign that represents some level of addiction. That's an aspect that represents some level of addiction. And here, I think it's the addiction to power with Mars in Leo. And again, the square to Neptune doing whatever it takes, right? Whatever it takes. And I think there could be even some level of debasement here with this square. And I would imagine that, that whatever, sort of carpet burn she got with Willie Brown, which are pretty well known at this point, that there may have been even things that might have been even darker or even kind of more off color or more off the record would not surprise me. It would not surprise me. I do think she's going to have a problem with Biden. I think she's going to have a problem with Biden. And that's because she's got this, Biden is over here. He's a Scorpio. So, he's in her sixth house, which means that she probably doesn't view him with his son in her sixth house is a stepping stone to get up to Saturn on her midheaven. And Neptune in her sixth house in Scorpio would also indicate that she might have some undependability with Scorpio people, just in general, and particularly with working with them. Also, the sixth house does represent health. So she will be going through the Uranus-Neptune opposition. That won't be for another, year and a half or so. And she might have some health issues during that time. I would not be surprised if she comes down, if she deals with some health issues. And, and what are we talking about? Quite possibly reproductive, maybe ovarian, something along those lines. But that's a ways away. So there you go. There's your Kamala breakdown. I would say keep your eyes on her over the course of the next 3 to 4 days. And that's where we see the beginning of the Mars retrogrades, right? The Mars over the moon, the retrograde back, and the Mars motion, the Mars movement over a moon. It's going to be an interesting time. I think it'll be a make or break time for her. And if she weathers the storm, she'll be stronger, which some of you who are not Kamala fans probably don't want to hear. And I'm just saying, if she does get elected, when Jupiter does hit Saturn in her chart, that's it. That's when she becomes president, and that'll be probably around April of next year. That's what I think. April of next year. If that happens, this woman will no doubt be president. She's going to have to get through this first. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. Let's see what you guys are talking about. That was kind of a long breakdown of her chart, wasn't it? How do I get back to where I was? There we go. Now we got 239. All right, well, I thought that was at the back burns. Hillary is way too evil. Professor Zeus has a site. He got into Trump's connections. I know most of his supporters mean well. Let's see. Sandra says, I sure hope it doesn't happen. It was awesome. Scorpio goes south node in a few. Yeah, that's not for a while, though. That's not until next year. That's not until late summer, early fall of next year. So that's a ways. Will Black Moon Lilith empower or disempower her moon? Well, that depends. I think initially it could be problematic. I think it's this thing with Planned Parenthood. I think it's a thing with Planned Parenthood. That's what I think. And that will be a hot button issue for some people. For other people, it'll just be she was doing the right thing. The Aries moon is a tough moon. It's like it is kind of a hardcore moon. So we'll see what happens. The other thing too is her own birth status. I think if people are trying to derail her because of her birth issue, that's what Igor is talking about. Is not a U.S. citizen. This is where I was going. Igor, you're right on it. That people are going to try and go after her as not being a natural born citizen. She's kind of running into some of this. This is part of the calculated risk. Obama was a calculated risk with the birth certificate and the Kenyan dad. Okay. Calculated risk. What's his name? Mitt Romney, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he born in Mexico? Right. And I think John McCain may have been born in Panama. So, we'll see. I'm not sure that is going to be, if people want to get her off her game and have her be less effective and thus, kind of deconstruct the ticket. I don't think they want to take that birth certificate or the birth route because Trump has a history of being a birther. And he caught a lot of heat with that. And by the way, there's a lot of shady stuff with Obama's birth certificate and everything that went on with it. But I don't want to get into that right now. But I think unless you have ironclad proof, and I mean ironclad proof, that what her being raised in Canada for part of the time, unless you've got ironclad proof, I think you run the risk of the rinse, repeat, spin cycle with Obama and the birth certificate deal, right? They are all not eligible. I would agree with you. None of them are eligible. That should be a more of a point, actually. Rami's dad was born in Mexico. Okay, thank you. A little clarification there. So yeah, I think that yeah, she was born, but I think that could come up. It could come up as an issue, but you know how the press works. They're going to bring up Obama. They're going to bring up Trump. They're going to bring up the birther thing, and they'll. I think that they would be better suited in going in a bit of a different direction, unless they have something super, super ironclad. Because the other thing that we found out is that really the truth doesn't really matter that much. I mean, it matters to you and I. It matters to you and I, but in the media world, the truth doesn't matter. Facts don't matter. None of that stuff matters, okay? I mean, literally, you'd have to find somebody murdering somebody on video now in politics to, derail them. I mean, that's how bad it is. So I think that they may be spinning their wheels. I would go after her in a different way. All right. Born in Panama on a military base makes you a citizen. Okay. Yeah. But it's fudgy, right? It's a little fudgy thing. It's a fudgy thing. Anyway, could she steal the nomination this week at the convention and then have her crisis trying to appear Democratic? Well, who are you talking about, Hillary, or are you talking about Kamala? Could Hillary steal the convention? Maybe she might be able to steal the convention. Maybe. I mean, it's going to be very interesting to watch, especially with Mars squaring Pluto. And that's going to be a very interesting convention to watch. And isn't it Minneapolis? Where is it? Wisconsin? Isn't it Wisconsin? And I think that, didn't the police say that they're not going to, it's going to be like, that might be must see TV on some level, right? That might be must see TV. All right, let's do some more charts here. Hillary will be VP, and then Kamala. I don't think they'll arc inside Kamala. I think Kamala's probably got too many. She's got dirty files too. They all have dirty files. All right, so let's go. Let's get into where do we want to go? Let's do another screen share. Let's see. Since I'm doing some different. All right, so I want to get out of here. Let's do this. I wanted to do Australia's chart because I know a lot of you Aussies watch the show. So let me pop it up here. Because I was asked, can you do Australia's chart? That's not the one I want. Well, that's not the one I want. We'll get there. I promise. Damn! All right. Let me go back into the old browser. Let's do that. Let's browse this bad boy. Jasper's back again. Jasper, you want to just give them some of your cat Buddhic wisdom? There you go. Give him some Dharma. Hit him with some Dharma, Jasper. Right there. Hit him with some cat Dharma. Oh yeah, there you go. Okay, I got Australia's chart in here somewhere. Let's look it up. There was right there, right there. Um, the scenario in Australia and New Zealand is getting darker and darker by the day. It's really starting to look a lot like a Philip K. Dick novel. It's getting really bad. They're going into quarantine mode in New Zealand and Australia. I think New Zealand, they're like fining people on social media to peddle conspiracy theories. I mean, this is getting really bad. Really, really bad. Really bad. Can I say that again? Could have put a fuck in there. Really fucking bad. All right. Be nice if some people in places like, I don't know, the UN, the Amnesty International were looking at this and saying, Houston, we have a problem. Wouldn't it be nice? Okay, let's look at Australia's chart. Oh, we got 254. Hey, hit the like button. Seems to help, apparently. Okay, let's go application window. Cancel. Oh, I'm here at the I'm in the other thing. That's the thing I'm in now, right there. Australia, that's you. There you are in all of your grand trine glory. Mars in Virgo, Moon in Taurus, Sun, Saturn conjunction. You're just going through your Saturn return, Australia. How's it feel? Look at this, Saturn going through your fourth house. Talk about restrictions, eh? That's Canadian talk. Sorry, I'm having to do a little adjustment here. Saturn in the fourth house, restrictions, Pluto down there, draconian, plutocratic. You're going through a crisis. Australia, you are going through a crisis. Make no mistake about it. And guess what? It's in your homes. And your government is reaching into your homes, restricting you. Now, I know I talked to one of my clients in Queensland on Friday, about a 50-50 kind of mask situation, very different than Melbourne. Apparently, Melbourne is kind of like the New York of Australia. A lot of kind of hipster, liberal, progressive people. Apparently, a lot of people were black in Melbourne. So, but right now, your country's going through a crisis. I mean, and here we go. Look, we got the South Node hitting Chiron in Sagittarius. We've been talking about the South Node for a while in Sagittarius with these laws, right? We're seeing like the overreach of the law, how arbitrary and mutable the laws are. And what is Chiron? Chiron is the healer, right? It is the wounded healer. So when we think of, Chiron, we think of healing. We think of things like, diseases or viruses like corona in the third house. And what is the third house? Third house is ruled by Gemini. So what are we talking about? We're talking about breath, breathing, mass. You've got your Mercury in Sag, Jupiter in Sag. It's a very, very Sagittarian kind of country. And when it's right, it's good, right? Venus, Uranus, Jupiter, Mercury. It's a country that exports well around the world. Great cinema, great music, handsome movie stars, movie starlets. But now you've got the South Node basically hitting the majority of your country's chart. So this is a very weak time, in the sort of the DNA of Australia. Meanwhile, at the top of the chart, you have Devilish Gemini in the ninth house, making all kinds of new laws. right on top of Neptune, right? So you have this true node Neptune conjunction in the ninth house, which is Sagittarius's house. And Neptune in the ninth house is pretty good. I mean, Neptune in Sagittarius is exalted, ninth house, accidental exaltation. So you have true node up there, but you also have this dynamic going down in the bottom of the chart with Sagittarius and the south node. So what are they doing? They're playing fast and loose with your laws. That's exactly what they're doing. And the ninth house, by the way, does represent foreign countries and foreign entities. And just like with Melbourne, whose ascendant was at 22 degrees, we know that China is what? A Libran country, right? So I could even cook this up right now. I'm pretty sure I could cook this up right now. We could do Australia on the outside. And I think I got China in here. Let's see what we have. We have the China Hanover. What else? Let me see. You get to see some of my client list. Don't look. Let's see. You don't see their charts. Doesn't matter. There's nothing incriminating in there. Where's China? There's China. Okay, here we go. So let's look. Let's find out what China's relationship is with Australia. You'll see where Libra shows up. I know my charts, right? So here we go. Here's Australia's ascendant. And look what we have, lurking right off of the ascendant. Neptune, Mercury, Sun, the hidden power, right here, 12th house. See that? That's what's going on for you, Australia. Right there. And then there's the Saturn-Mars conjunction. Yeah. So this is kind of, dominating. Saturn on Mars dominates. I'd say China's making the rules. Maybe not for all the states. Maybe not for, Sydney or Queensland or Canberra, but Saturn here is definitely dominant on Mars and behind the scenes as well, right? Very much behind the scenes. So China is one of those entities. It's sort of like the ghost factor in Australia's chart. And look at this. Look at that. You see that? True node right there on the descendant in Aries. Yeah. Relationship. Martial relationship. Wow. And then the south node is going to be right over here on Australia's ascendant, which means taking away from the identity of the Australians and moving more into the partnership. Yep. Jupiter, this is from China. They've got Jupiter in Capricorn natally. They're going through their Jupiter return. And guess what? Right there in the fourth house, in Australia's fourth house, that's resources, that's money. Capricorn, that's influence. That's influence. And then this is the part that concerns me the most for Australia, is that Australia has, or China rather, has its moon at 3 Aquarius. So with the super conjunction coming up, it's going to be right there. So the super conjunction is going to be Jupiter-Saturn conjunct China's moon, right here on its AC and, right on the cusp of the 5th house for Australia. That's, whether it's in the 5th house, it doesn't really matter. It's like there is this like bond, Saturn is bonding and Jupiter is expanding. I think Australia, you got a China problem. You got a China crisis. It's just the way it is. And I'm wondering how, the so-called West or Trump is going to respond to this. People think it's, Taiwan has an issue with China, and they do. Or I think it's Australia. I think it is Australia. I think this is kind of the ground zero point for maybe even where this, conflagration of World War III might go down. But here's the problem with Australia. They're dealing with the same corporate crown that that Hong Kong was dealing with at some point, right? So this isn't really sort of the United States' territory. I mean, this really has to do with the crown and what happens between the crown and Australia and China. And apparently there was some weird stuff that happened where certain documents or certain charters weren't signed correctly, and people went in after the fact, retroactively did something. Who is the guy? The Fosdyke, this Satanist who Henry Macau has had. He's written some articles for him. He's talked about this, and when that paperwork or that charter was kind of re-signed, basically they moved it over to China. Like it's already a done deal. And everything that's playing out now is just conditioning. So I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. I mean, I do know what to say. I mean, this is not great because it is going to get worse. I'm sorry, Australia. It's going to get worse for you before it gets better. And I don't know what you're going to do, but whatever you're doing now, either you're going to have to kind of lay it all out there and put your freedoms and liberties on the line, or you're going to be dealing with this as your future. And I'm not sure you want to deal with that as your future. You know what I'm saying? Because I love the Australian spirit. It's got all this Sagittarius, right? Like, how could you be pinned in? You just can't be pinned in. You can't be pinned in. Not with all that Sagittarius. This is an expansive, kind of in some ways freedom-loving country. Happy-go-lucky and, good day, mate, and all that stuff, shrimp and the Barbie. That's that Sagittarian kind of avuncular sort of feel. Let's pound the Fosters. You know what I'm saying? That's kind of the soul of Australia. And now you got this coming in. I'm just telling you, man, this is not great. Not great. And when that true node, where's Pluto? So Pluto's at 16 Gemini. When that true node hits Pluto in spring of next year, it could go one or two ways, right? It could either be a formal transfer of power and resources, or it could go a different way because there is that Mars Pluto square in the chart. And maybe at that point, you'll have had enough, but I don't know what the socioeconomic or the political landscape is going to be like for you guys. So, who knows? Maybe there'll be counterinsurgency, counter-revolution. We'll see. But, I don't think the future is bright here. And especially with your politicians. They're the biggest. The politicians are the errand boys because I think the charters are done. I think the treaty charter agreements, they've already been signed. Like they've already been signed. There's probably nothing that can be done at that level. And I don't even think, they're taking orders now from the crown. I think that power has been transferred. I mean, you saw when they raised the Chinese flag over the police station. So Australia, your best bet is going to be probably counterinsurgency, counter-revolution. Because I think when you really figure out what's going on, you're not going to want to live in China. And they may afford you a few of your so-called freedoms you have now, but that's only after you've gone through some level of re-education and social engineering. Sorry to say, but that's where it's at. We're still pulling for you. I'm pulling for you. And let's hope that some creative chaos winds up getting thrown into the mix. So there you go. It's their only chance, revolt or die. It's going to be tough for them. I feel like it'll be at least as bad as Kurt say, as Australia, most every country. Yes, you're right. This is where they're going to look. Melbourne is a test city. It's a test city. And they're a test. They have these test cities. Melbourne, Portland, Seattle, New York. They try shit out, right? They're always like gaining analytics and metrics from whatever they're doing. And they're going to apply it, and they've already done some of this shit already. I mean, look at Johannesburg. Look what they did to Johannesburg. They rolled out a lot of this stuff in Johannesburg. And granted, the data and the metrics aren't as sophisticated, but they can transfer a lot of those. I mean, what do you think is going on here in the States? They're doing the same thing here in the States that they did in Johannesburg in South Africa. They're accusing regular Americans of being racist, that somehow, in some way, shape, or form, Black Americans are living under apartheid, which is just fucking ridiculous. But they're using the same model. It's the same model. So they've been doing this stuff for a while, and they've got their data points, and they've got their roadmaps. So there we go. When are the solar flares coming? Do we always have solar flares? I don't know. I'll look at them next week. Let's see. Charles says, I really hope Chris Hemsworth isn't a sicko like so many Hollywood people. Was it him or his brother that was married to Miley Cyrus? Do the math on that one. Let's see what else. Aliens, please. Yep. Although you may not want to encounter the aliens. If we do get the alien trip, I got a very bad feeling about the alien thing. Very, 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 very bad feeling. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story now. It's story time with Robert. Cue the music. All right, so I'm going to tell you something that happened to me. It was, I had this vision. Okay, and the reason why I'm sharing this vision, because it's on topic. I'm not just rambling. I'm not just your rambling Uncle Robert. So I had this vision one time, and it was I was seeing this gal in California, right? And so we decided that we were going to partake in that famous party drug that people took back in the 90s when they went to raves. You know what I'm talking about. Now, we were going to do this in a very, very ritualistic kind of way. Okay. We're going to fast a little bit, and then we're going to do like a little sauna thing, which we did. And then we drove out to the ocean. And I knew this place because I used to live in the coast. And I knew this place where we could climb up on this cliff bluff and walk out on it, and then drop down and just literally sit on these boulders right at the edge of the Pacific Ocean, and the waves would just come in, and it'd either be really placid or really turgid, but rarely would you ever get sprayed. It was a really cool spot. I used to love going. I used to take my dog there and everything. So there we were. We're hanging out, and of course we're getting into the roll, and all of a sudden I just dropped down. And I dropped down into this really intense, and I wasn't really like planning on going to Vision Land. Like, I think we both had different things on our minds, right? Like, like it was going to be a different kind of experience. But I all of a sudden, I just dropped down in this vision, and I started to see things. And the first thing I saw was, I said, I see these guys driving across the Canadian border, and they're not from here, and they've got a suitcase, and I think they have dirty nukes. And they're coming across the Canadian border in Washington State. I don't know where I got that from, but it popped into my head, right? And then I saw something really weird, okay? I saw something very, very strange. I saw aliens that looked like, reptiles, reptilians, which I knew of at the time, by the way, but they were very reptile-like, and they were fucking eating people, okay? They were eating people. That's what they were doing. And most of the people were in this trance. But I'll tell you who wasn't in the trance. It was so-called Black African American people. For some reason, they were outside of this trance. And they were actually able to to take on these aliens. I don't know where this was coming from, right? And it was like, holy shit, you know, it came out of left field. So essentially, they basically wound up saving the planet from these aliens. Okay, it was a very intense dream, very intense dream. It wasn't, I'm sorry, not a dream, like a vision, but it felt like a dream. It was a vision. I saw this thing. And then I came out of it and, you know, whatever. Okay, so I'm going to fast forward. This was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, either late November, I think it was late November or December of that year, which was 1999. I'm driving around San Francisco and it's late at night. It's raining like hell. And I'm listening to Art Bell on my car radio. And I hear on the news that they had apprehended these two guys crossing the Canadian border in Washington with explosives. And when I heard that, my jaw almost dropped. And by the way, you could actually go online. I could find it for you right now if I wanted to. That actually happened. That actually happened. Like it's part of the internet. Okay. So I didn't hallucinate what I heard, nor do I believe that I hallucinated what I saw. So if that part of what I saw was true, what does that say about the second part? Question mark. It's an interesting proposition, isn't it? All right. Speaking of interesting propositions, I had some really fascinating stuff with Sagittarians this week. Okay, I'm on a Sagittarian roll. A lot of my clients now, I've been having a lot of Sagittarians as clients for the last couple of weeks. I really like Sagittarians, by the way. So I want to show you some very interesting charts. The first Sagittarian thing that happened to me this week is I was watching this. It's kind of an interesting channel. It's called Vlad TV. It's this guy. He interviews, a lot of so-called black celebrities, usually movie producers or actors or maybe some hip hop guys, but he also interviews some other interesting people. It's sort of like kind of a guy's channel. Anyway, he was interviewing this guy named Gianni Russo. I'd never heard of Gianni Russo before. But he was an interesting character and, kind of bright and sharp. And he was telling some very fascinating stories. And he was born in New York. And he was connected to Frank Costello, who was a big mob boss. And he had apparently a polio, this guy. Let me show you. I think I have a picture of Gianni Russo. And there's a, let me see if I can find it. Here, I'll show you a picture of him. Show you what it looks like. This is a good story. You guys are gonna like this. And the chart shit is gonna be really good. Okay. So he's listed as an actor. Okay. So let me find a good picture of him. Hold on. I just gotta get the right picture. So he was apparently kidnapped by Pablo Escobar. The guy has lived just an amazingly kind of charmed Sagittarian kind of life. Okay. Cuomo embarrassed himself with Fredo. What's that about? I just got to find the right, because I can't give this away. Every picture I see of this guy, it's kind of like, okay, here, let's do this. All right. Here we go. I'll just show you the, here, I'll do this. So this is it. Apparently there are 6 parts of this interview because this guy is, I think he might qualify as like one of the most interesting men in the world in some ways. So there's your Gianni Russo visual. All right. So when he was 5.5 years old, he was diagnosed with polio and he had to leave his house. And he spent the next 6.5 years in a hospital recovering from polio. And apparently his whole left side stopped working and he had to rehabilitate his left side, and his right side was quite strong. So his great uncle, who was kind of a mafia guy, was friends with the nurse who worked at this this hospital that he was recovering at. So I guess he was around 12 and a half years old. And she'd been telling him about this guy who was an orderly there who was molesting kids, right? He would molest the kids. And she said, you have to be careful with this guy. So he's like, okay. And he remembered it. So what he did is he found a broom handle and he kept sharpening this broom handle. And he sharpened it and sharpened it and sharpened it until it became like a spear. So right around 12 and a half, this guy, this orderly, comes into where he is staying. He's got a bed. It's a big space, and all the kids have beds and then curtains around the beds and stuff. And so he comes in and he brings the curtain back, and he whips out his member, and he tells Gianni that it's like a Tootsie Roll, and do what you do with a Tootsie Roll. So he gets this broomstick that he sharpened into a spear, and as the guy lunges forward to him to molest him, he takes his broomstick and rams it through him like it's the spear that disembowels Christ, right? It's like the spear of Longinus, this thing. And it goes all the way through to his, anyway, at 12 and a half years old, he kills the guy for molest. So they said, okay, you're healed polio. So he takes a taxi cab back home and goes back to his neighborhood. And eventually he runs into this guy named Frank Costello. And he doesn't know who Frank Costello is, but he tells Frank Costello who his uncle is. And his uncle, or his great uncle, I think, and Frank Costello I think they go back to the same town in Italy. It's one of those things. So Frank Costello is so kind of taken over the fact that, he's met, the nephew of his buddy, that on the spot. Now, this is he was born in 42. So this is around 50, right around 1954. He gives the kid 3 $100 bills. And he says, come see me at this address on Monday. So he becomes like a messenger for this Frank Costello guy. And he gets kind of initiated into the mob world. So one day, Frank Costello, he's kicking around. He gets pulled over by a truant officer. And the truant, I wonder if I should just play this. Let me see if I can just play this. I should just try and play this thing. I wonder if Vlad TV would get pissed at me. I got to play this. You guys, I'm gonna cue this up. All right. I'm gonna cue this up so you guys can actually hear this thing. But before I do that, I got to make sure that because he'll tell the story way better than I can. You got to hear this story. Okay. It's kind of an amazing story. Let me just go back here to StreamYard. And if I do the screen share and I do this, and I do the Chrome, do I get, yes, share audio. All right. So I'm going to try and find this thing. I'm going to try and nail it as fast as possible on this. But you got to hear this story. Okay. It's definitely worth hearing. And I don't think I'm going to get dinged. And I'll make sure I put a link into this. There's astrology here. There is astrology here. Okay. I'm going to take you into astrology. But let me go forward. Let me see. It's right around. Let's see if we get it right around. Let me see what we got here. Let's try this. Let me see. Hold on a second. Oh, hold on. Where's maybe it's part 2. Oh, here it is. All right. So this is the scene where he talks about the child predator, and where's part 3? Starting to work for Frank Costello. Then part 4. All right, this is what you want to hear. This is what you want to hear. This is at age 15, having an affair with Marilyn Monroe. Okay, I'm going to play this for you guys because then we're going to look at their charts. There's a reason why I'm doing this. All right, here we go. He's a very entertaining storyteller. So take it away, Gianni Russo. Now, is that not a Sagittarian story? Is that not a Sagittarian story? Right? Man, that is something. That is something. Okay, so what a character. I mean, it's a Sagittarian thing. He gets pulled over by a cop. He's not going to school, by the way. That would be too Gemini, right? Because Gemini is like grade school, junior high, high school. Cop pulls him over, and the guy's got $10,000 in his pocket. Okay. So I decided to look at Mr. Gianni's chart. And I wanted to see what his chart was like with Marilyn Monroe. What does it look like? So here you go. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you exactly what it looks like. All right. Let's see. We got this. And let me see. It's let me just do that. Yeah, screen share. So check this out. This is their synastry chart together. Hold on a second. Fire this thing up. Here we go. There's a method to the madness here. I figured it out. All right. So this is Russo's chart. He's got that. He's on the inside. He's got that Libra rising. Of course, he's very charming. He's got Venus. At what degree? Where is he? Gianni Russo. Oh, that's Australia. My bad. Damn it. Wrong chart. My apologies. Hold on. We're going to get there. We will get there. I just had that thing up. That's not it. Hold on. Yeah. Damn, where'd it go? I just had it up here. There it is. Okay. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. All right. So let's go back here. Let's share application. That should be it. I thought I had it. Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Sorry. I don't know where I got the Australia from. So that's Russo. He's on the inner wheel. So he's Libra ascending. Correct? Yep. He's got that Sun in Sag down in the third house, which is rulership Gemini. Marilyn Monroe, we got the Sun opposition. Look at that. She's at 10. He's at 19, right? And Sun opposition in men and women creates attraction. And her Sun is conjunct his Mars in the 8th house. The man is not lying. I'm telling you, he is not lying. He's not lying. You know, he's got that Mars in the 8th house. What sign is it in? He's got Mars in Gemini at 10 degrees, exactly conjunct her Sun. She was into him. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what you call chemistry right there. Right? But he wasn't even 16 years old at the time. I think he was almost 16. And then we have the Uranus. So was she molesting Gianni Russo? I don't know. I don't think Gianni Russo would think that he was, but there we go. We got the Sun Mars conjunction exact at 10 degrees. And look, Marilyn Monroe had Venus and Aries. Some like it hot. She did. Venus and Aries. That is a hot aspect. And in Gianni Russo's 7th house relationship, there's her part of fortune. The 7th house. Could you imagine that, being 15 and a half years old and spending a weekend in like an executive hotel suite with Marilyn Monroe? Now, she would actually play more of a role with him later on, as he would wind up getting actually kind of close to her and Sam Giancana and the whole Kennedy scene. And he actually, in these interviews, talks about 2 of the mob hitmen that were involved in the Kennedy assassination. It's a pretty compelling interview. There's her Jupiter in his 5th house, right? Love, romance. But, if we're looking for a synastриc match and a telltale sign, it's right there. Sun Mars conjunction, 10 degrees, 8th house, turn out the lights. Done. And the guy is a character. He's a total character, and it's a totally great interview if you are so inclined to watch that stuff, right? So there you go. Robert looked back in the chair. There was a bit of a mishap. The story was silent the whole time. Oh shit! I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I hit the damn. I apologize. Maybe that'll help me not get it. The guy slept with Marilyn Monroe. He was 15 years old. He was a shampoo boy at this academy. So he talks about his relationship with. I wish I could play it. Damn. I tried to hit the sound button. Gianni Russo had a relationship with Marilyn Monroe at 15 and a half. He worked for Frank Costello. He worked at a beauty academy. He was a shampoo boy. She liked him. And eventually she went to this hotel that Frank Costello was at. And Frank Costello said, go up and take care of the woman up in the suite, in the the executive suite or whatever. It's Marilyn Monroe. And he spends the weekend with her at 15 and a half. Okay. So there's your story. I apologize. I wish you could have heard him tell it. Go watch the interview. I'll leave the links. It's highly entertaining. Highly, highly entertaining. I apologize. So was a hoe bag. Marilyn Monroe, by the way, had a relationship with Anton LaVey, if you can call it that. She was a singer at a jazz club in Kansas City, and Anton LaVey was a piano player there. So Marilyn Monroe got around a little bit. All right, I got one more chart for you. And it's another Sagittarian chart, and there's no audio involved this time, so I apologize. I was certainly enjoying the story. All right, so let me go to this chart. And the other Sagittarian that I ran across was Little Richard. And he's fascinating, and he's a total Sagittarian. He's just really open and really, really honest, like super honest. And he's wild, he's a wild man. And, there wouldn't be rock and roll without Little Richard. And so I watched 2 interviews with him. And one was when he was with, on Dick Cavett. And that was back when he was doing the wild and crazy sort of Little Richard thing, right? That's when he was doing that. And that was around 72. And then he did this interview on David Letterman. And I did the here it is. It's right here. And I did his name is Richard Penniman. And I did the little Richard chart. And then on this episode of David Letterman, which is on Friday, May 4th, 1984, I got it right around 9 p.m. Little Richard comes out being just as open and honest and Sagittarian as he had always been. He comes out and he says that he's no longer a homosexual. And it's like, wow, that's interesting. That's totally interesting. And he says the letter, he says, Dave, I know what it is to feel like you now. And it's really hilarious. Like really hilarious. So what happened to Little Richard is that he became an evangelical. And he says, I turn my life over to Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. And it wasn't an act. I mean, it was, he did that Sagittarian thing. You're like, that's what Sagittarians will do. They will make this moral pivot in their lives, maybe more than once. But he made this moral pivot and he decided that he was going to give his life up for Christ. And he did. He says, I'm just at peace now. I'm happy every day. And then he says, I'm no longer a homosexual. I mean, that's what he said. And so I decided to throw the chart up, and there's some interesting things going on, right? So during that time, Uranus was transiting through Sagittarius, and guess what? It was hitting Little Richard's sun. So he was going to go through a radical change. A radical change. 8th house, sexual orientation, right? 8th house. So there he's got Uranus right on his sun. He's got that sun true node conjunction. How could he not be honest? So this was Little Richard's process. It was the radical reorientation from the Sagittarian perspective, and 8th house is, inside out and ground up. That's what the 8th house is. And then for that night, Mars, right there, sexuality, is on Pluto in his chart. 7th house. So basically, what you saw in a clear representation of mundane tropical astrology is right there. Mars on Pluto, 7th house, his relationship with his own sexuality. Mars talking about a transformation or a different kind, that he was no longer homosexual. Those were his words, not mine. It's an amazing bit of video. And then he gets up and he sings a gospel song. And he's a Sag. It's not an act. Sagittarians, they may be okay when they decide they're going to act on stage and screen, but they're a sign that does not act in that way. If they do something, you're getting the full Monty with the Sagittarius. So really interesting kind of mundane moment with Little Richard. I really like Little Richard. I think he's amazing. I think he's everything that every interview you see with him, he's incredibly honest and really forthright. And even Jupiter, conjuncting his own natal Uranus at that time on his midheaven, he's a wild man. That's how the world saw Little Richard. They saw Uranus on the ascendant. They saw the Venus-Neptune conjunction. Is it a man? Is it a woman? Is he tutti frutti, right? Moon, and there's that moon in Aries right on the, hey, Little Richard and Kamala Harris kind of look a little bit alike. Yeah, interesting cat. Very interesting cat. And really, when I threw this chart up there and I saw Uranus, there it is. There's that transformation. There's his sexuality, right there, transformation on display in that moment for David Letterman to see. By the way, David Letterman, if I'm not mistaken, is in Aries. So there would have been the sun-moon conjunction with Little Richard at that time during that taping of that show. There you go. Just some Sagittarian moments. Gianni Russo, Marilyn Monroe, and Little Richard. and Little Richard. There you go. All right. I think I'm out here for now. I'm going to do the top 10, right? I'm going to do the top 10 easiest to hardest rising signs next week. There was a lot of content this week. Thank you for hanging in there. Thank you for hanging in there. We don't act around. Let's sing a gospel song. He was a character, man. He was a total character. You can't hear anything? Poof, just like that. He slapped Pence. Oh, funny. What else? Long story. You know he's banging Brad Pitt in his hell. Brad Pitt's another Sagittarius, by the way. I'm sticking around just to see his response. This is the crazy part. The moral pivot. Yeah. Let's see. What else do we have here? I didn't know that Marilyn Monroe, according to Anton LaVey. Anton LaVey slept with both Marilyn Monroe and Jane Mansfield. By the way, Jane Mansfield was a Satanist. She was a full-on Satanist. Church of Satan. Wouldn't believe Little Richard, but he did put cameras in his bathroom. His color press not buying its gay to straight. No, well, that's what he was saying. That's what he was saying. He was straight. You know, the Holy Spirit straightened out his kink. That's what happened. Little Richard indoctrinating Otis Redding in the Hall of Fame. Otis Redding, I think Otis Redding sang for Little Richard. Everybody, all these famous people went through his band. Jimi Hendrix played with Little Richard. You look at Jimi Hendrix, you can tell where Jimi Hendrix guys look. It was Little Richard. I'm giggling because Robert did not get it. Okay. Probably not. All right. You have to read the chat. I'll go back and read it. Thanks. All right. That's it, boys and girls. Thank you for being a part of tonight's show. As always, it's been a blast. So just to give you an update on the event, emails are being sent out. I have to finalize a bunch of stuff. This is just where it's at. Hang in there with me. It's going to happen. Everybody who is a member, who's been subscribing to my show, you're going to get an email too, right? People from last year and the people that subscribe to the show, when I say subscribe, you're giving me $5 to $20 a month. You're going to get an email. And when you get the email, we're going to have the itinerary. It's going to be all worked out. I am working on a classic Texas theme for you when you come here. Okay. You're going to get metaphysics. Last year, I didn't do any presentations. I'm going to be presenting on Saturday, right? We're going to have Masaki Miyagawa. He's going to be presenting on Saturday. We're going to have a panel discussion. That's going to happen on Saturday. Saturday is where we're going to get our intellectual chops in, right? That's going to happen. It's going to be great. We're going to have entertainment. Masaki Miyagawa, not only is he a pyramid wizard, he's also a DJ. We're going to have a sound system. I think Hope Easton is going to be here, and she's going to do some stuff. And then I got some cool Texas shit that I'm just getting ready to finalize for you guys. Just hang in there. Hang in there. It's coming. It's coming. You'll have the link. You'll have the email. I had a bit of a challenge because my old email list was on my old computer and it's in a different format. So I'm working on that. Plus I'm getting everything together here in Casa Phoenix, but it's going to happen. The link's going to go out. It's going to be cool. We're going to have a really good time. Okay. And it's going to be important, I think, because I don't know what's going to happen as we get into October. It could be one of those things where, you just might all wind up staying here in Texas and we might just have our own community, right? We might just see the new world. So, bring things that are really important to you. Like maybe your children. I don't know. No, that's not. By the way, can we get a congratulations for Michael Cisterno? Mike's a father to be. I don't want to jinx it, but in the next few weeks there's going to be another little Cisterno walling around, and so love Michael. If you met him last year, you know what a wonderful guy he is. A great guy, and he'll be here this year as well. And so you'll get to meet the regulars. You'll get to meet Ani. You'll get to meet Steve. You'll get to meet a a lot of the chat landers. So I hope as many of you can make it. And I think I've got about 80 spaces that I can reasonably fit in the hotel. There's other hotels in the area, and of course the room. This is the week. It's going to happen. I just have to finalize a few things. Just trust me on this. Trust me on this. We'll get there. And when we get there, it'll be cool. All right. I'll be back tomorrow, 15 minutes of flame. We'll look at more of the Shadowgate stuff and whatever else pops up between now and then. Thank you all very, very much. Use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible. I'm Robert Phoenix, and you've been watching the 11th House. Oh, you know what I want to do? I want to bring the Leo King on here one night. I want to do a jam with the Leo King. I'm just putting that out there. Okay? I'm just putting that out there. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks we could do I'd love to do something with the Leo King. I think we'd have a good show, actually. I think we'd have a really, really good show. But I am going to do it in the month of September when the sun is in Virgo, not Leo, if he'll do it. All right. Take care, everybody. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye for now.